Welcome back, everyone, to Constructive Uncoupling, the podcast devoted to amicable divorces. I'm Judy Weigel, your host, and amicable divorce expert. Why? Because that's all I do, amicable divorces. The title of today's podcast, When Parents Don't Want to Be Parents, What Do You Do in a Divorce?, is one of the most important podcasts I will do. As we know, the toughest part of a divorce is the children. Yes, it's painful when there are just two adults, no children, but the challenge of parents to continue dealing with each other after the divorce is final and through the co-parenting schedule is absolutely huge. In a divorce with children, parenting plans have to be created, a weekly schedule that determines which parent the children are with, who takes them, who picks them up from school, who does their homework, takes them to soccer practice, dance lessons, all of that. The activities in a child's life are huge, and the demands on the parents' lives are equally huge to meet their children's lives. The schedule typically has one parent playing catch-up with cooking, cleaning, laundry, making lunches, and doing homework for the children. That would be the parent who had longer work hours than the other parent, or the parent who worked while the other parent took care of the house, the children's activities, and their homework. And sometimes there's a parent who doesn't participate with the children even when they are home. Now, there's a divorce, and parenting time has to be established between both parents. The extreme enormity of this situation really became apparent to me years ago when I was doing a mediation, and it was a mediation about a parenting plan. I was listening to the mom say, I really want to share time as much as possible 50-50, which, by the way, is a little unusual. Quite often, if there's a mom or a dad, but it is typically the mom, that spends a little more time with the children, doing their homework, taking them to school activities, taking them to social activities, that parent typically doesn't want to share time 50-50. But in this particular mediation, this mom wanted to spend equal time with the father, with the child. She really felt their son needed the male role model. And it was a struggle. The father didn't want 50-50. He wanted every other weekend, maybe one overnight every other weekend, and then he just wanted to swing by on the fly, so to speak, during the week when he had the opportunity. And so I was baffled by this, and I turned to the father and I said, "Do you want to be a dad?" And he said, "No, I never wanted to be a dad. We had the child because my wife thought it would make the marriage better." And I just stopped at that point. That was a lot to take in. It was the first time I had heard anybody say that, and I honestly didn't know where to go. I just had to let them take care of the conversation. So this has happened a couple more times when one parent voluntarily gave up their parenting time. And it wasn't even an issue of child support. It was an issue of the father didn't want to spend time with the children. And I'm saying this not to make dads the bad guys, because I've also been in mediations where fathers have fought for equal time, wanted equal time. I even sat in a mediation where the father cried because the mother did not want to give him equal time. So please know that I'm not coming from a place of fathers are wrong, mothers are good. That is not where I'm coming from. It just happened to be in these cases that it was the dad who didn't want equal time. So before we explore how to handle it, let's just look at why people become parents. I think this is really important to start from that position, because then it's going to help you assess your situation going forward if you feel you're going to struggle with a co-parenting schedule. So reasons why people become parents. Well, unintended sex and no contraception is one way. Another way is the marriage isn't going well and the child will make the marriage better. A third way is agreeing to have children when you really didn't want to. And the fourth, getting married specifically to start a family. So those are the four big reasons why people have children. Now, let's look at reasons why people don't make such great parents. Some people do, some people don't. It's just the way it is. So first reason, unintended sex with no contraception. You're not even ready to become parents in that case. And in fact, I had a situation where these parents were so cool, unintended pregnancy. They were dating. They really didn't talk about getting married, but they wanted to step up and do the right thing. And so they got married. A few years later, they filed for divorce. They really wanted to do the right thing, though, and both of these parents wanted as much time with their child as humanly possible because they both really wanted children. They just weren't the right people to be married. So that's interesting. Unintended sex, having a child, loving the child, trying to get married. It just didn't work out. But the child's going to have lots and lots of love from both parents. So, and this is a case where the marriage didn't work out and the child, well, no. This is the next one. Sorry about that. So the next reason why people are not such great parents is the marriage isn't going well and you're having a child to make the marriage better. A third way, agreeing to have children when you really didn't want to. Fourth, planned between married people without any discussion of parenting styles. So this is super important. So people talk about having children, so that's great. But if you don't talk about parenting styles, you're really going to run into trouble because people come from different backgrounds. And this is part 2 of talking about parenting styles. You really have to look at how each parent was raised and look to see if there's anything in how your spouse was raised that would cause problems in parenting styles in your marriage. Because we repeat the actions of our parents. Even if we know our parents weren't great, even if we know that one of the parents did things that was not healthy, it is so ingrained in us what we watched our parents do that we're going to start repeating the actions of our parents without even recognizing it. So it's very, very important that you both talk about how you were raised, the things that you would like to do as parents that you learned from your parents that were wonderful or that you considered valuable, and share that with each other, and then share what your parents did that were not valuable. And if you can talk this through, you're going to become very good parents. And lastly, parents that really talked everything through, did the right thing, but then something happened. They either had addiction issues or any type of substance abuse, fell in with the wrong crowd. That too will make you not such great parents, even though everything else was done correctly. But that's after the fact. Unfortunately, you don't see that till after. So let's go from marriage to divorce. During marriage, here's how the parenting generally works. Parents assign specific roles within the marriage, and as parents, with one parent spending more time performing tasks for the children. So during marriage, if you do talk through how you want to be as parents, and you look at what each of your obligations are, one, typically one parent will take on more of the burden of earning a living, or even if both parents really equally make money, you still are going to assign different roles to parents. And quite often, one parent will assume more of the children's tasks and responsibilities as the other parent. And that seems to be okay while you're married, but now you're getting divorced. And here's how it works. Either both parents have to perform the same tasks of dressing the children, taking them to school, feeding them, taking them to sports and social activities, doing homework with them, or one parent will continue to be the lead parent with the above-mentioned tasks of daily care for the children, and the other parent takes them on weekends. Sometimes this is okay with the lead parent because they think it's best for the children that they, the lead parent, assume all of the weekly tasks, and sometimes it doesn't work. And then there are other situations where one parent thinks it's not fair that they're being forced to take more parenting time than the other parent. So how does this all work out? Well, it works out in the divorce mediation. It all comes out because the parents need help with a co-parenting plan. So just like the story I opened with one parent not wanting much time with the children, it's heartbreaking, but it happens. And that story isn't the only example of a parent who isn't requesting much parenting time with children. It does happen more than you think. So here's what I want the one parent who's going to be the lead parent, even in the divorce. I want you to think about this. If you're starting to gravitate towards it's not fair, I don't want the other parent to be the fun parent and for me to be the unfun parent, you really can't look at it that way. You certainly can't force a parent to spend time with their children. You can force child support, but you can't force time. Because if you force a parent to have time and they really don't want to do it, it's not going to work out for the kids. Either that parent won't pick them up on time, will maybe give them to another relative, have a babysitter most of the time. I even had a parent send Ubers to pick up the children because they couldn't get to the school to pick them up. Their work schedule was too much. And that wasn't a very comforting thought for the other parent. So how can you, the involved parent, resolve this so the child isn't affected? I will answer this after I read passages from a book that I think might be comforting and helpful. And then we're going to go to the nuts and bolts of how to deal with this. Now, normally, I would not read from a book like this for this divorce mediation. But I was reading this book for my own pleasure. It's metaphysical and it's philosophical. But I got to this chapter on children and parenting, and this is the ultimate of how children should be conceived and raised. And I just wanted to share it with you, so please allow me this indulgence. It's from a book titled The Archangel Guide to Enlightenment and Mastery. The title is Helping Children to Enlightenment. So, and it's about the era of Atlantis. Now, we've all heard, hopefully, about Atlantis, the lost civilization, and this book kind of researches lost civilization. So, here we go. In the golden era of Atlantis, everything was undertaken from an enlightened perspective, and all decisions were made from a point of mastery. Bringing a new soul into the world and educating them were considered to be incredibly important. We have much to learn from the people of this era about the importance and powers of parenting. When this pathway is undertaken with integrity, it offers many opportunities for enlightenment and mastery. Parenthood is not for everyone. In addition, not all women were destined to be mothers. This decision was made at a soul level. Some chose to dedicate their lives to something else, such as creativity. Others devoted themselves to looking after the children of others. either caring for orphans or in a teaching capacity. As a sidebar, Oprah comes to mind. Oprah never had children, but Oprah was a teacher. We were all her children. And I think she did a great job of teaching us. So Oprah dedicated herself to be a teacher, and she said that often. Therefore, she did not have children. She focused on teaching the masses. Back to the book. Sex was regarded as a sacred act for the purpose of procreation in Atlantis. If a couple fell in love and wanted to marry, they would first visit the local priest, who was highly evolved and psychically trained. The priest would examine the auras of the couple to check that they were physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually compatible. If they were not, they would not marry. They would not want to. There would be no purpose in marriage if it were not for the highest good of all. The Atlanteans were pragmatic, and they knew that relationships were challenging. And we know that too, don't we? If a couple was not happy together, despite the precautions taken to ensure they were compatible, they could divorce without problem. This was, however, rare. The wedding was a powerful ceremony, calling in great spiritual powers to overlight the couple. But there was no exchange of rings or any other symbols, as this was not considered necessary. The couple knew that one of the greatest spiritual responsibilities anyone could assume in a lifetime was to bring in a soul, and that the task of caring for that child was considered to be vital. They also understood that parenting was high-frequency service work, so in order to prepare for this blessed task, they would meditate together, often with the extended family, to discover what kind of soul they could best serve. At this point, 2 or 3 spirits might present themselves so that they could explore one another's energies, and before contraception, a decision would be taken that would best serve everyone. The physical sexual act would draw in the new soul, who would then connect with the mother's body. When the baby was born, they would be welcomed and greeted not just by the parents and immediate family, but by the whole community. Every single baby was keenly awaited, warmly welcomed, and hugely loved. They would be taken to the temple, where the priest would examine their aura to discover what their soul journey had been and what gifts and talents they were bringing into that life. This was enormously helpful to the child, for the parents and community were then able to honor and encourage the things that they were good at. Every child blossoms when their good points are drawn out, and the children of the Golden Age of Atlantis were particularly blessed in this respect. So I guess my message to all lead parents who are going to spend more time with the children in divorce just because that's the way it has to work out, please know you truly are serving the higher good. And if you can focus on that, keep that in mind, although focusing on the higher good has so many challenges. This may be your ticket to being a lot calmer, feeling more fulfilled, and meeting that huge challenge of truly educating and raising your child. So lastly, let's look at accepting parental responsibility so that the child flourishes. First of all, accept the fact that you will be the more involved parent and cherish that role. If you really are going to have to assume that, just cherish it. It will feed your soul more than you know. Number 2, be the best parent you can if you're the parent who really wanted the children, or you're the parent who stepped up when a child was a surprise to both of you. Because you will be rewarded many-fold when they are adults. They will notice and be grateful for all you did. They honestly will. They may not really understand it now, but kids are so smart. Kids see through so much that we don't think they can see. And you will be blessed. You will be thanked in so many different ways as the children get older. But I mean, even when you're married, and you're doing great things for your kids. They don't know it immediately, but later on in life, they do come back and thank. I mean, think about when you were kids, when you were not liking what one of your parents was doing, and they really had the best intentions for you. Did you not come back and say, when you were able to be self-reflective, thanks, Mom, thanks, Dad? I may not have understood it then, but I really appreciate what you did for me now. So take a lesson from your own playbook if that was your experience. Number 3, don't blame the other parent, the more absent parent in front of the children, especially if you knew the other parent didn't want to have children or wasn't capable of being a great parent. It's not ever going to be a productive thing to do. It will hurt you to keep that anger inside of you, and it will damage the children. Kids know who's contributing to their lives. Yes, they may crave and hunger for the other parent's attention, but that relationship will have to work itself out on its own. It really will. I'm going to refer you to one of my guilty pleasures, the Housewife series on Bravo. And so there's one series called The Atlanta Housewives. Kandi Burruss, a well-known singer, performer, songwriter, had her daughter years ago. Her daughter's probably graduating from high school now. They weren't married. It was not intended. And Kandi stepped up. She was a great mom. And she never badmouthed the other parent. And he came around when he was able to step up. And this is maybe something else to consider. Maybe the other parent will step up at some point, and they just need to go through their own learning curve, their own evolution curve, in order to be the parent that they need to be. So the father of Candy's first daughter did come back to their child's life and want to be a parent and apologized. He had to win his daughter's heart back, but at least he came back. And so there's always that hope. 4, don't dwell on what's fair and not fair. That's a losing game. We either create our own circumstances and have to be responsible for where we are, or we are dealt challenges that are available to help us grow. It just may be better that the other parent isn't around much if they can't be a good role model for the children. So that's something else to think about. You know, if the absent parent, the parent who doesn't want to spend time with the child, if that parent isn't going to be a good parent anyway, don't force it. It will be worse if you try and force it. It really will be. You just have to let that parent grow on their own. And fair, yes, fair is a losing game. You can talk about fair all day. So much isn't fair about life if we don't explore why things happen to us. So just to be a little more philosophical here, I really do believe that things happen to us for a reason. When we're confronted with difficulties, and I am no different than any of you, I go through my own challenges and my own difficulties on a daily basis. When I start getting angry about them and I start yelling, "Our life isn't fair, why do I have to go through this?" I just become ill. It doesn't benefit me. But when I can take a step back and say, all right, what's the lesson I need to learn here? Please show me the lesson. And if I can see why I'm being challenged, and it's generally to learn, to perfect something about myself. If I can do that, all of a sudden, that challenge becomes such a benefit to me. It creates so much more happiness. Other doors open. And so I'm asking the lead parent to consider not going with the life isn't fair. Let me deal with this challenge. Let me see what I have to do about it. How much will then the absent parent participate? What's good for that absent parent? It teaches a lot of patience and tolerance when we can go through that and just say to the absent parent, the door is always open. When you want more time, you can have more time. They are here for you. If you can do that, that would be phenomenal. And lastly, maybe find another role model for the children in place of the absentee parent. You know, in heterosexual marriages, you would find another gender role model for the absentee parent. But we have a very interesting situation now. We have gay and lesbian parents, so it's not as simple as finding the opposite gender as a role model because there are two parents of the same gender. So I was thinking in these cases, you might want to just find another role model that might be good, maybe not another love interest if you're of a gay and lesbian divorce, but just somebody else who can provide another adult experience and give the kids a balance from you, the lead parent, the one who's constantly with them. Because they need a little bit of a balance and a check and to see another way of thinking and handling situations. So I hope this has been beneficial. It's a really tough situation when you are in a co-parenting relationship after the divorce, while the divorce is going on, and you find that you're going to be the one spending more time with the children. Get the best out of it that you can, because it's not going to change. You can't fight. You can't fight City Hall. You can't fight the absentee parent. Just make sure that that parent can at least financially support the situation in place of being absentee. And there are a lot of resources for you out there that will help at least deal with the financial aspect of taking care of your children. So, in conclusion, thank you again for joining me on Constructive Uncoupling, the podcast devoted to amicable divorces. I am Judy Weigel, your host. If you would like to get in touch with me about this podcast or suggest any other topics, I would love to hear from you. You can reach me at my email address, Judy, Judy, at constructiveuncoupling.com. Judy at constructiveuncoupling.com. I will see you again in our next episode.